I am very honored to be with my friend, Robert Levy, president of Robert Levy Associates, a auctioneer, um, a longtime veteran warrior professional of the industry. Welcome to the podcast, Robert.
Thanks, Noah. It's really nice to be here. I'm honored that you invited me to join you again. So thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Robert was one of the first people on this podcast, and it was an excellent interview. But um, number one, I think I've gotten better since then, and number two, the auction game has changed a lot since then. We did that in 2018, which time flies, and it's a different landscape in industrial equipment, and I mean, heck, it's a different landscape this year than it was last year.
Things are changing, that's for sure.
Things are a changing. So, today I want to learn a little history about the auctions, find out how it's evolving, and when I can, in addition to telling good stories in the podcast, I want to try to teach people something that's useful. Um, and lots of our listeners bid for things at auctions, or at least fascinated by auctions. And um, what better resource than to talk to somebody on the other side to get some insight, and maybe you can help us. First, I want to find out exactly what you're doing now. Get the 3-minute bio, and then we're going to delve into some fun things.
Sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, I've been in the auction business for over 40 some years. And I really define myself not necessarily as an auctioneer, although I have run thousands and thousands of auction sales. And the auction sale is definitely one of my sharper tools. But given the specificity of assets, it is sometimes better to deploy alternative sales methodologies and sales processes than an auction sale when we're dealing with unique equipment. So while, yes, I do use auction sales very, very often, I don't walk into a situation where assets for sale automatically should be inserted into an auction sale, because let's face it, our sellers want to maximize the recovery on those pieces of equipment. And sometimes an auction sale might not do the trick.
Right.
So,
So
I've
it could
always
be like selling the stuff piecemeal, like liquidation, or it could mean, I don't know, different creative kind of things.
Yeah, well, when you have generic everyday assets where you have a large user base, an auction sale is a very, very effective and efficient way of selling assets. But when you have something that is more specialized, that has a wide range of potential value based upon the number of potential bidders at any one particular time, there's negotiated sales which might get you a better result than just putting something into an auction sale.
What is a negotiated sale?
You establish a price, and you attract bidders, and you negotiate a price rather than just auctioning off.
Oh, so you're saying you're brokering an entire shop all to one
Not
person?
Not an entire shop, but pieces of equipment. If you have a very, very, very specialized piece of equipment, and you may have one particular buyer in the whole wide world who's interested in it, it's probably not a good auction sale. You might, but I don't think that is really an auction sale scenario. People use the auction sale in their minds. I think frequently they perceive the auction sale as a desperate measure. When you can't sell something, you stick it in an auction sale. Whereas when you have a lot of action and a lot of activity, and you have a good buyer base, that's definitely a time to use an auction sale, because you have a good base for a good number of end users who will, or dealers and end users who will buy those pieces of equipment.
Absolutely. But I'm just trying to understand what you're talking about a second ago about an obscure piece that there's only one person in the world interested. Where do you come in? You facilitate the deal?
Yeah, well, I'll come in and I'll take a look at the equipment, and you'll occasionally find those very unique pieces of equipment in a shop that has standard and generic equipment. You might have one or two pieces that have a potentially high value that should not be inserted in the auction process. So we would market the assets and then negotiate the sale of that particular piece of equipment. And if you only have one interested person, if you have let's say you have a piece of equipment that was designed and engineered, manufactured to make a unique product, proprietary product that nobody else in the world is making. Even hydromats, for example, some of the hydromats are set up, and screw machines are set up for very unique products. And there are times when a negotiated sale will render a much higher return than if you put it into an auction sale.
Well, we've seen hydromats in auction sales, and they don't exactly lend themselves to auction sales often.
Not all the time. Sometimes they do. Yeah. Sometimes they do, and sometimes you're very lucky and you get the right machine, the way it's set up, and it's set up for a particular product that many people can use. But frequently a hydromat is set up for a particular product that only one company can use. Right. And you're probably better off negotiating a sale rather than putting it in the auction sale. But I will say that no matter what type of sales process that you deploy, the most important aspect of a successful sale is your marketing campaign and reaching the right buyers, and also attributing the correct time frame to allow these assets to be in the marketplace, to allow for the creation of awareness.
So you have to use somebody like Today's Machining World.
Absolutely. I use Today's Machining World all the time. I happen to know them. They're pretty good people.
Well, what can I say?
Yeah. No, but it's seriously. I mean, you have to have a multifaceted marketing campaign to draw the right people out. I mean, we had a sale yesterday in the screw machine and CNC world.
Okay.
And the sale was a very successful sale. And the reason that we enjoyed the success that we had was because of an extensive marketing campaign and how we presented the assets to the world, and we offered it such a way that we attracted the buyers and they could bid on the assets in such a way that they enjoyed and made sense for them. So you have to know what you're doing.
Well, we know that you advertised in Today's Machining World quite a bit. And you are still a believer in sending out physical flyers.
So yes, I do. I know that the world is in the middle of maybe the latter part of the transition of moving from print media and brochures to electronic distribution.
I hate mail. I mean, I would never get any mail if my wife didn't check the mail.
I know, but you're a young guy, and I have a garbage can underneath my mailbox too, by the way. And a lot of the stuff doesn't even make it into my house. However,
it's dangerous because it could have your personal information on it. You don't shred it.
Depends on what it is. I don't bring in bills. I don't throw. It's the junk stuff that I throw away. But having said that, I really believe that when you're mailing out a campaign, or when you're embarking upon a marketing campaign, you have to create the campaign so that it addresses and hits everybody repeatedly, and the way in which people who spend money get their information. Yeah. Some of the older generations I still like to look at a brochure. If I'm sitting at my desk and I see a brochure, I can pick it up and I can open it and I can look at it and I can see the pictures and I can see the descriptions, and I can also go to the website. I can also open my email, but having this sit on my desk is a constant reminder that sale's coming up and it doesn't get lost in my email box that I forget about,
Sure.
because we're inundated. We are absolutely inundated with electronic marketing today, and
Right. And
it's
we're more inundated with electronic now than with mail. So maybe the
yeah.
mail stands out in a way that the electronic doesn't.
I believe that there's a place for in a well balanced campaign. There is a place for print media. Yes.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that, um, you know, I don't know, you may spend a couple dollars for each flyer you send out. And just like we may spend like, you know, $1 for a really good name we can get to add to our email list. And
Mm-hmm.
you think that that's crazy, but then, you know, when it comes to the machinery business, all it takes is one
The one
person
person,
with
one person.
with an auction, two people, right?
Mm, sometimes.
Eh,
Yeah. No, I think
two or one
it's very,
person, yeah.
yeah, I think it's very, very important that you consider the money that you're spending on your marketing as an investment in getting the right people to your event. If you
Right.
don't have the right people to your event, you're not going to enjoy success.
Yeah, and
I
that's
always
for
defer
everything.
to spending money on the marketing. Yeah, yeah,
Right,
but
because
in particular,
it's small potatoes when you figure,
it is small potatoes. I mean, your
yeah.
entire marketing budget on an auction sale, depending on the size of your event, and you do have to balance your expenditure to the size of the event. But if you're looking at $1 million auction sale, you know, you spend 30 grand on your marketing, 40 grand on your marketing, maybe.
You get a lot of
And the
marketing for
difference
30
between,
grand.
yes, you do. Yes, you do. But if you think about having the one or two right people at the auction sale, a machine that you figured for 100 grand could bring 250 if you get the right people there. You just made up your difference in a big way.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, this is great stuff about some of the strategies. Um, I want a little bit of background on you coming up in the auctions. You, like me, come from family business. Um, I want to know a little bit about your father and you and how you came up. Just the quick version to give people some context.
Yeah. Yeah. So my father started Norman Levy Associates, which was a old time auction company, started in the early 50s, 1951. And at a time that he started it, there was a lot of, was a dark cloud over the auction business because it was not accepted as a respected way of selling assets. And there was you know, if you ran an auction sale, two things: one, you were distressed, and two, there was a lot of corruption in the industry, and
A
buyers
lot of
didn't know.
colluding.
A lot of collusion, but there was a, yeah. I mean, even the auctioneers were colluding with dealers and other auctioneers and sellers, and it just was not a. It was not really an ethical, level playing field type of environment. And Norman Levy really cleaned up. I mean, he had a very, very high moral standard, and he was an honest man. And he created a level playing field where people could come to the auction sale and be treated fairly and properly, and stand, uh, you know, stand a chance of actually being properly treated.
Right.
So he actually developed. There were a handful of national auction companies at the time,
Hey, Robert,
and he raised the bar.
the wire is kind of rubbing. Just
Oh,
keep it in
sorry.
front. Yeah.
So he raised the bar in the auction business, and he really was one of the pioneers in developing that industry into a respected place, and a savvy way of converting idle equipment into real money. And some of the larger corporations then began to use the auction sale process to sell facilities and plants and surplus. And we enjoyed that because when I joined my dad back in 1980, he had already developed a very fine company and a great reputation my brother and I joined my dad, and we really built out the organization into a global enterprise, which we really enjoyed. And I love the business, and I love the auction sales, and I love being on the stand, and just being involved in the creation of the solution. Recognize I know what I'm looking at for the most part. I know how to sell the equipment. I know what sales methodologies. I know how long it takes to sell. I know what we have to do. And part of my biggest enjoyment is the creation of the plan, and then executing the plan, and also being in the front lines and selling, because I really enjoy that. I love meeting with my clients. I like very much in the dialogues and conversations that we have about strategy and why we do this and why we don't do that. And it's a wonderful, wonderful experience. It's a dialogue, it's a partnership, which is on the successful sales. And a lot of them are. Most sales are successful if you can manage expectations properly.
Most sales are successful. Yeah,
Well,
I guess
yeah,
I guess that's
yeah,
a relative term.
it is a relative term. You have to manage expectations, and we look at equipment, and some sellers, because they invested a lot of money in the creation of and the purchase of and the engineering, and they think their equipment is worth a lot more than it is. We're on the front lines every day. We know what assets are worth and how much they're selling for. We can actually provide very valuable information to our sellers to say, yeah, we think we can get you this amount of money. And there are times where our sellers actually know something that we don't know, and we have to collaborate and listen to our sellers. I've had sales where, they said, "What do you think it's worth?" And I said, "Well, I think it's worth 800 grand." And he goes, "No, it's worth about 2 million." And I go, "Okay, tell me why." And he actually explained to me, there's one particular case, he explained to me why. And I said, "I think you're probably right." And we worked together to establish what our expectations were. And he was right. But what we provided was the vehicle, and we provided the marketing, and we provided the sales methodology to bring to a competitive bidding forum those buyers that actually enabled him to get what the maximum return would be. So
Try holding this out just like this. Let me see if we can keep it consistent. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I do enjoy working with my clients, having the dialogue. I'm available 24/7. This isn't a commercial. This is just me. I enjoy working with my clients and having that dialogue, because I learn from my clients, and
Right. Well,
I hope that my clients learn from me.
After 44 years, so many partners that you've worked with. I mean, you just now you've seen so much that you're able to walk into a shop and look around and go, yeah, I think this parts washer is going to go for X, and this is going to go for X. Now, of course, things change, values change, but I've always been impressed with auctioneers that go in and are just like, yeah, I think this is going to bring X. And I go, you totally pulled that out of your tachas. And they did, but it doesn't
Right?
mean that they're wrong.
They're wrong. Right. Right. And in the swings and roundabouts, I think what you have to focus on is the total number, because nobody can tell you. There's only one person I ever saw actually do it, and that was my dad. But I've never met anybody that can tell you what every single thing is going to bring accurately. You figure a group of machines for 10 grand a piece, some are going to bring 5, some are going to bring 20, but at the end of all of those items, you're going to get to the number, but not the way you expected to get to the number.
Interesting. Yeah. So, okay. So your father was somewhat of a Renaissance person in the business, and I hear lots of stories about There you go. Just snapped out of for a second.
I was getting a phone call. Yeah.
I hear lots of stories about sort of the back in the day, the good old days of where Graff-Pinkert would go to an auction and, nobody would be there, and people would just sort of make way. They're like, oh, they're just going to bid for everything, etc. Um, are these stories true? I don't know, but um, it used to be more of an insider game for dealers than end users, correct?
Yeah, I guess years and years and years ago, it was more of a dealer environment. And then when it became a safer place to do business, end users were starting to come to the auction sales, and end users found it to be a venue of buying equipment, probably for cheaper than retail. And they would buy things that dealers might not buy. For example, you have a lot of perishable tooling, machine accessories, and machinery dealers don't want to deal with that with little stuff. They want to deal with a machine that they can buy for 10 and sell for 20.
Yeah.
But the end users who had facilities and shops and manufacturing looked at everything else and said, wow, this is all good stuff. So what we started doing was we would empty the cabinets and the drawers, and we would line everything up and segregate and offer things in ways that attracted the end users, and they started to come to the sales, and they
Yeah.
trusted that they're going to be treated fairly and ethically, and that's really what I think. That was one of the first things that
Yeah.
changed the industry dramatically
I mean,
when
I
it
remember
transitioned from.
like going to some auctions in the late 90s, early 2000s even, and it was like an event. It was it it was a cool thing where all these people knew each other, and like it it was a cool scene. um
It was brilliant. It was like a mini MDNA meeting every auction sale. We had the
an
machinery
MDNA
dealers, we had
meeting,
the
but
end
all kinds of
users.
characters. Yeah.
Oh yeah. We had users, we had dealers, we had scrap guys, we had people that just like auction junkies that would come to the sale, and everybody knew everybody.
Yeah.
And it was marvelous. I mean, I have photographs of you when you were first starting out, coming to my sales, and it was M&S Manufacturing. I have a really nice picture of you and your dad. You and I, the three of us were talking,
Yeah, well, that
and
was a little bit before me, and that was a deal where you were coming to Graff-Pinkert to get consultation, advice, and even thought about partnering, and they were all scared of it. And um, I think you ended up doing very well on that sale.
we did extremely well. It was one of those magical events. And one of the things that's really important, which you bring us to another really interesting topic, is the reputation of the company and the people in the company does have an impact on the success of an auction sale. And that facility, Jim Sayer, who actually became a friend after the fact, we worked very, very closely together on that sale. He had a wonderful reputation, and everybody in the manufacturing arena knew of him and enjoyed him and trusted him and felt very, very comfortable with his equipment and him as a human being, and that generated tremendous success.
The owner of the shop, the seller.
The owner of he was one of the owners of the shop, seller. Yeah.
Yeah, you told me a story, another story about a
New
shop,
Jersey.
a shop with a guy named Charlie, a feel good
Charlie.
auction story
Yeah.
of, I guess you'd call it the idealist lens of an auction. Why don't you recount that for me?
Sure. That was one of I kind of grew up in the screw machine world. I mean, my first auction sales that I became involved with when I joined my father were screw machine sales. So I've been involved in many, many, many screw machines and CNC shops over the years. And I really enjoy screw machine shops because I feel comfortable in them, because place where I began my early career.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the first sales that I had was a screw machine shop in Kenilworth, New Jersey. It was called Harvin and Co. And the gentleman who owned it needed to sell his business because he had some medical issues and he didn't feel comfortable running his business anymore. And he wanted to exit his business and capture the equity in his business so that his family would have enough money to live on. And he called me up and said, come on over and please take a look at this, which I did. And he asked me, which I would tell him normally, it's my normal practice, how much I thought the equipment would bring. And I gave him a range. And he said to me, Robert, it's really important that we maximize the return because this is everything I have, and my family. I have to leave my family. I want to leave my family with enough money for them to live on. I said, Charlie, I understand. I respect that, and I will do everything in my power to make that happen. So he eventually, and I call him up. Charlie, are you ready? Are you ready? Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it. Finally, I don't know. A couple months later, he goes, "All right, Robert, I'm ready." He goes, "But you have to help me make a decision." I said, "What can I help you with, Charlie?" He goes, "I don't know if I should sell you the plant or have you run it for me on a commission or a fee basis."
Yeah.
I said, "Charlie, I understand what your concerns are. I understand what your necessities are. And I will tell you that I think we've been conservative on our valuation. I think you would be best suited if you hired me to run the sale rather than selling me the assets." And he goes, "Okay, Robert, I'm trusting you. Go for it." So
And so what was in the sale? Acme's?
we had Acme's, Brownies, Davenport's, second op stuff, the snow tappers and, all the second op stuff, grinders. And so.
How long ago was this? 80s?
Oh, this was back in the 80s. Yeah, this was probably 1985, a while ago. So I do what I do. We got the marketing materials out, and East Coast can be challenging for an auction sale. This was on the East Coast. And I go check in my hotel the night before the auction sale, and there's a guy that specializes in screw machines, and I ran into him in the hotel.
Oh, somebody that we know.
It might be. He goes, I walk in, he goes, "Robert,
not my dad.
No, it was not your dad. It was not your dad." He goes, "Robert, you're gonna die tomorrow." He goes, "Nobody's gonna be there. The plant is old, the equipment's dirty," and I go, "Well, thanks for making my night." So the next morning I go to the sale, and I know how important it is for this man. And I'm like, there's nothing I wouldn't do for him. So I start the sale, and we start with small stuff as we typically do to get everybody, give people a chance to get there and get people warmed up and comfortable with the process. And we're down probably, I don't know, $10,000, $15,000 over what the stuff should have been, because it was a small crowd at the beginning of the sale. And finally I get to the first Acme, and we figured it for like 15 grand. So I asked for 25. So can you hear $25,000?
Back then, 15 grand wasn't a lot.
That was a lot of money. No, it was, not for a machine like that. No, but we figured it for 15 grand. So I said, "All right, ladies and gentlemen, can I hear a $25,000 bid to start it?" Guy raises his hand. I go, "Oh, hallelujah."
And people don't normally even raise their hand, right?
No.
They let it go down
because they don't want to be. Yeah, they don't want to be the first one to bid. Guy raises his hand at 15,000. I asked for 17.5. Another person raises his. I got 17.5. Not going to hear 20. The first guy goes 20. I got 20. I got 22.5. Now 25. And I think we sold it for like $35,000. And I went, "Oh, thank you. We've made up the difference now. We're back to where we should be." The next machine, the same thing happened. And machines that we figured for 20 grand, we're bringing 45. Machines that we figured for 30 grand, we're bringing 75. And I get to one And this was a lesson I learned. This is where I learned that lesson, the reputation lesson. I get to one machine and a guy's bidding, and finally he stops bidding. I go, come on, one more time. He goes, yeah, why not? Anything for Charlie. So what I realized was that Charlie's reputation was so strong and so stellar that all of his friends were there supporting Charlie. And they did it because of their love for him and the fact that he treated people well, and they were there to treat him well. And it really turned out to be more of a charity auction sale than an industrial
Right. I
auction
know. I
sale.
mean, yeah, it's
So what happened was we figured the deal to bring, I think we figured it to bring about 325,000. I would have bought it from them probably for 275 or 300,000. It brought over 700. I think it brought 750 grand.
right. And now that
And
would probably be worth $1.25 million.
whatever. But the point is that if Charlie sold me his plant for 275, I would have made $500,000 that day. I walked out of there earning my commission, and I was able to walk into Charlie's office with his family. His wife and his daughter were sitting there. I said, Charlie, he goes, how did we do? I said, Charlie, you had a marvelous day. This is what happened. The guy cried. I mean, I'm going to cry now. He was so happy, and I felt so good because I delivered him something that was more meaningful than anything that I could have possibly done. And I love that. I like doing that for people. I've worked with small family businesses. I've worked with large corporations. I've worked with cities and states and municipalities. And the place I get the most enjoyment is where I can help somebody who is the beneficiary of me doing a good job. And
Because I sometimes feel like in business, you can sometimes get too wrapped up in the dollars, in let's buy this for X and sell it for X. And
that's how you keep score.
sometimes the purpose gets lost. And I'm sure that you have that happen to you as well, where it's
how you keep score. And when you're doing as many deals as I do or did, I was running probably 2 auction sales a week for 40 years. And
wow.
you do have to begin to kind of desensitize yourself. However, I mean, just a little bit. However, I like to believe I never lost my sensitivity towards what I was doing. And I like to think of myself as an artist. And I get personally and emotionally involved. I get emotionally involved in what I do because my successes in what I do it's my signature. It's my legacy. It's, when I do a good job, it's like you and I were talking about an engineer, hold on a second. Somebody's calling me. An engineer who designs and manufactures really cool things to accomplish something that nobody else has thought about because they enjoy the process and they enjoy the mental challenge. Well, I enjoy the mental challenge and the emotional fulfillment of doing a good job, and I try and figure stuff out. And maybe that's why we get along well, because we have a really, really good dialogue and a discussion about theory behind why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And I hope that I will, and I hope I didn't do this, and I hope I never will do this, say, don't worry about it. I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this for a long time, so just trust me. Well, I don't think that's a really good answer. And I always find the time to have conversations with my clients so that they actually understand what our gameplay is, because it just makes it a lot easier,
For sure.
So I don't mean to get off track, but
no,
it's insight into me and how I think and how I operate.
Absolutely. So, all right, we've talked a little bit about what it was in the bad old days in the 50s, and then in the heyday of dealers in the 80s and 90s. And fast forward to say, latter 2000s and later, broadband, everything is totally different now. Everybody can advertise machines. Everybody's an auctioneer. Everybody has eBay. Everybody is a little bit more savvy and sort of into thinking that they, can beat the system. They don't have to be captive to one retailer. Now, some people just like buying used or new machines, and that's good. Some people are afraid of auctions. A lot of people find auctions tantalizing. So now, it's been 2.5 years since you've been on the sand.
A couple of years. Yeah. Let me address some of the things you said, though, if I may.
Yeah. Now that was I
mean, you
I
opened
was
up a
priming
whole,
you.
you opened up a whole area of discussion about transition, about what happened, and for years and years and years, the live auction sale was the thing. I mean, it was the accepted standard of, we'd travel all over the world, and our buyers would travel all over the world and come to the auction sales. And once in a while, we would have somebody give us a proxy bid, and we would do the bidding for them. But typically, we would have a big on-site crowd, and we would walk from machine to machine to machine. And then in 1999 and 2000, at the advent of the internet, it really changed the way auction sales worked. And what it did was it enabled buyers from around the world to participate in an auction sale that they would not normally participate in, because depending on the technology, you could have people in Hong Kong, India, Turkey, Europe, Spain, England, Canada, United States, all participating in the same auction sale at the same time without the requirement of travel.
I know. And now that seems like, yeah, of course. But
yeah, but there was a transition period to get people to that level of comfort. And it was, eBay sold, or eBay came around and their stock went through the roof, and there were certain auction companies that sold for a lot of money because they were at the right place at the right time with the right relationships. But what it did was it really put out there that anybody could really become an auctioneer, because it lowered the barrier to entry into the auction business. The perception of the barrier to entry, it lowered the perception of the barrier to entry. And what I'm referring to is that the typical auction company would have to have certain things in-house in order to be a successful auction company. You'd have to have an auctioneer that knew what he was or she was selling, would know how to auction successfully, and a good auctioneer can make a good auction sale a great auction sale, and can rescue you from a disaster to a good auction sale.
mm-hmm.
You have to have a marketing department. You have to have a logistics side for setting up the facility and presenting the assets properly. And what happened was, when eBay started and developed the internet timed auction sales, now all of a sudden everybody could be an auctioneer. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I don't really.
And I'm sure all the auctioneers loathed this. They were like,
the auctioneers did.
Who do you think you are?
Yeah, but here's one of the things that actually happened. Dealers became auctioneers. And there is an inherent conflict when a dealer becomes an auctioneer, because and it's a perception.
You guys always say that.
No, but it's in many cases, not always, but in many cases, it's true. There's a different mindset and mentality that an auctioneer has compared to a dealer. And when a dealer, and I've had many dealer partners in my auction sales, but when I watch a dealer become an auctioneer and they still continue their dealerships, there is an inherent conflict because they're bidding against their customers
That's true.
and they're trying to buy assets. And it takes the allure that drives people to an auction sale. People go to an auction sale because they think there's a chance that they might be able to get something for a bargain. And when a dealer owns the deal or a dealer is the auctioneer, there's less likelihood of that happening. And I think a lot of buyers know that. Now, is that true today compared to what it was, 15 years ago? Yeah, I still think that there's some truth to that. It might have lessened a little bit, but I still think that there are auction companies that started off as dealers that, the dealers saw the auctioneers running all these sales and making a lot of money. We didn't always make money, but the appearance of us making a lot of money, the dealers thought, I can do that myself. And when the software and the technology came out that enabled them to run their own auction sales, I don't need an auctioneer. Well, I don't necessarily believe that because I started in the auction space and I know what it takes to be an auction company and how to run sales successfully. But I think there was a divide there, and I really miss the camaraderie of working with some of the dealers that I used to work with that are no longer working with auction companies and they're just doing it on their own. I miss that. Are they generating success? Yeah, probably they are. I think that it's really important to note that when anybody decides to run an auction sale, there are certain things that absolutely must occur. For example, you must have a proper marketing campaign. You must present the assets in a proper fashion in order to satisfy the buyers. And there
I
was
mean,
a
I'm
learning curve.
I'm not gonna lie. It seemed sometimes Graff-Pinkert's gone, well, shit, we know how to market. We know how to, we have a lot of contacts. What are we, what are we giving an auctioneer this big cut for? Now, I understand the value. I agree with you, but you can obviously understand this feeling we might get of like, and also then when you see other dealers that are doing it, you go, well, if they can do it, then why shouldn't we? I as far as Graff-Pinkert's concerned, like, I think we just don't. I think we just don't feel like it. Like, it doesn't seem like. I think if you really wanted to develop into an auctioneer, it could work as a dealer / auctioneer if you kind of sold it the right way. But for us, it's more like, let's do our thing, and then let the auctioneer do their thing. Trust them. If they can, they can take a piece, we'll take a piece, and it'll be fine. Even though there's a part of you that goes, well, right, because you don't need to be on a stand. All you need is some software. What's
true.
the thing you miss so much about being on the stand? Tell me how it feels to be on the stand.
All right. But I do want to just make a statement based on what you just said, though. And I do understand how dealers feel or felt about becoming an auctioneer and the reason why they did become an auctioneer. But to answer your most current question is, there was a learning curve for me. I loved being on the stand. When I first got on the stand, I hated it because I had stage fright. I couldn't talk in front of a group of people. I mean, I remember being in college. I had to give a report in one of my classes, and there were 6 people in the class, and I got up, and there was a cute girl in the class, and I'm looking over there, and I started going, "Hi, my name is Robert Levy, and blah blah blah," and I couldn't do it. But I eventually, because that's what we do. My dad forced me to get up there, and the first time I did it was just dreadful, and the second time I did it was worse than the first time. But then I thought to myself, if I stick with it and I can do it, I think I will be good at it. And I stuck with it, and I began to really enjoy um, the, the the mental challenge, the physical challenge, and interacting with the crowd, and the whole experience of being able to coordinate my speech without thinking as I'm thinking about.
Was
I'm
it hard to
selling
learn
this.
to talk fast?
It took, you just do it over and over and over and over and over again, and it just becomes first nature. Some people will never get it. And talking fast is not necessarily what makes a good auctioneer. It helps, as long as when you speak quickly, your enunciation is clear enough that everybody in the room understands what you're saying. Because you can talk as fast as you want, if nobody, or slowly as you want, if nobody understands what you're saying, you're not going to get people to bid because they don't understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
So yes, it does take a while. Your brain has to click in so that it's automatic, because you're thinking about, I have a row of RB8s. I just sold one last week for 28.5. I got 8 of them here. There's the guy that bought 3 of them. He's standing over there. And after the RB8s, I got the RA6s, and they all have to be sequenced properly. You can't just like willy-nilly sequence them,
Right.
any
So
way you want. There's
you
logic to it.
so you, like, when you're in the middle of an auction, you kind of like, it's like you're an athlete and you're improvising. You're kind of like looking around and getting the feel of things, and you'll adjust.
Oh, you have to. You got to look at what the buyers are thinking, where they are, how they want to bid. You have things, and you have to prepare for it. Like every auction sale I did, I would spend the night before, the day before the auction sale, walking the plant, looking at the catalog, and understanding how things were lotted. And I would always work with my setup guys to make sure that they were lotted properly. So I had the ability to present the assets in a way with flexibility so that I could satisfy my buyers and move the sale along quickly. Thinking about buyer's choice and privilege and options and the order of sale and how much I got for the last one, and I got one coming up in 15 minutes, and who's in the, and I got to get milk on the way home, and just the brain, the way it works. It's incredible, but it takes a long time to really get to a place of comfort on the stand. And yes, I loved it. I miss it. I wish that I wish that I still could do that. I can do it, but the way that the industry has changed, there really aren't that many
you
live
were
auction sales anymore.
The sale that just went on yesterday, the Duffin, it is a sale that some auctioneers would have done live, or live on the web. Why did you choose to just go online, and you worked with Meetema, they're actually an advertiser with us. They're sort of a more modern. Do they do live stuff?
They do live stuff in certain arenas, and
Okay.
I worked with. So we debated whether or not it should be a live auction sale or not, and we worked with our client, and we discussed the pros and cons of doing a live auction sale. And given the number of items that we had and the commodities that we were selling, we mutually agreed that presenting the assets in an online auction sale presented, in this particular case, presented us with a better option for our client, and a better likelihood of maximizing the return over a live webcast auction sale.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
it worked out.
you probably could have been okay doing a
Yeah, no,
webcast.
it probably would have worked out fine. I don't think there would have been a huge difference in what we brought in. We actually, just to give you some data points on the sale, we always forecast beforehand. We were on average about 132% of our anticipated gross realization. So that's really good. 152 on our low end and 110 on our high end. So we exceeded all expectations.
And the screw machines were utterly pathetic.
Well, the screw machines were definitely on the soft side, but other stuff in the sale did remarkably better than what we had anticipated. I think it's indicative of where I hate to say it to you because this is what I mean. You spend a lot of your time on, but I think automatics right now are suffering a little bit. I mean, it's been a downward trend for quite some time.
Yeah, sure.
The advent of CNC. There are still wonderful places, great use for these machines, and you can talk way better than I can about the benefits of an automatic bar machine or a chucker for certain applications.
But I mean, the great thing is for an auction, if you have a CNC machine that's 30 years old, forget it. But if you have a multi-spindle screw machine
that's 30 years old, you might be able to do something.
30 years old isn't that old in screw machine years.
Right. One of the other reasons that we decided to do the online was the facility is in Cleveland. We are now in January. And if we did something, an on-site live auction sale, dealing with the uncontrollable and unpredictable weather aspects, we eliminated that completely from our.
But I mean, is anybody going to a sale now anyways during COVID?
Yeah, so people will go and they'll inspect it.
Right.
So we gave people the opportunity. We gave the buyers the opportunity to go physically inspect it.
Did people actually go inspect it?
Oh, yeah. We had a lot of people go and inspect it. We had a lot of people there the first day of inspection to go in and look at everything, and then they can do what they want. They make their notes, and then they go home and they bid on their computer. So there are some benefits of doing the online. And as the technology of the online systems have advanced, they've actually narrowed the gap a little bit. I mean, I continue to hate to say this, but they've really made the live auctioneer in a lot of circumstances a little obsolete.
Yeah.
So having the ability to be a live auctioneer is wonderful, but I don't think in a lot of instances, not running a live auction sale and using an online system, if it's a good system, I don't think you're assuming a lot of risk.
What somebody told me recently was that still, like, there are certain milieus, the agriculture auction, they don't do it online.
Farming. No, it's all on site. It's all there.
People want to climb, so to climb on. Yeah.
Kick the tires.
Kick the tires.
Yeah.
So, okay. I want to try to help people out here on the other side. I mean, you've given some interesting insight for people that want to be selling at an auction, at least academically. If you are an end user, say you're interested in a CNC lathe, you want one specific one. Do you have any in a sale? Do you have any tips? How can they, I know you're kind of like helping on the other side now, but like, all right, so you're going in, you want to get a Tsugami. What's your tactic to beat the other people out and to, not let the auctioneer take advantage of you?
Right. So
have you ever been asked that question before?
Yeah, but I also want to give give you my attitude and philosophy about helping my buyers too. I sit between my sellers and my buyers. And I really appreciate my buyers. And I do everything I can to make sure that my buyers feel like, and it's true, that I'm there as their advocate, helping them get what they want. And I really welcome the conversations that my buyers have with me, and I can help them. I frequently help my buyers. They'll come to me and say, I want this machine and I want that machine. I don't want this one, but I want that one. Can you help me? And I actually develop
Oh,
strategies. I work with my buyers to help them get what they want
interesting.
in ways that if I didn't know that they want it, there's nothing I can do.
So, okay.
Um,
So the first interesting tidbit here is I look at a sale, I see a piece of merchandise I want. Maybe I should call the auctioneer. Is this a thing one should do? Or depends on who the auctioneer is.
that's absolutely right. So you actually have to make sure that you feel comfortable sharing information. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing information, you probably should not share information with the
That's why I was
auctioneer.
going to say some of these
Yeah,
guys, there's an
yeah,
Italian word that we use that's furbo, like a fox,
yeah,
you know?
yeah,
There's a lot of
yeah, yeah,
furby people on all
yeah.
sides of this. Okay. So if you're doing the sale, you'd recommend that they go and tell you, I'm interested in this. And how would you, if somebody said, I'm interested in X machine, what would you do? What would you tell them?
Well, I find out what they're looking for. I mean, maybe it's not just that machine. I had a buyer who was interested in a group of machines and packages of tooling. And if I can help them, I said to them, look, you're going to buy this stuff and you don't want to end up with part of this and not the rest of it. So maybe I can help you if you share with me the extent of what your list is. I might be able to help you put things together in such a way that is beneficial to you as the buyer and beneficial to me as the auctioneer and beneficial to my client, which is truly a win-win-win. And I've had that happen to me many, many times, and everybody ends up happy that way. Now, I don't
I'm skeptical
typically.
when people say win-win. But
Why?
anyways,
Why? You can have a win-win-win. The buyer got what he wanted. He got everything he wanted. He got it for a price point that he was happy with. The seller was happy because we got everything sold for a price point he was happy with. That's a win-win-win.
okay. Okay.
So, I mean,
So that's very interesting. Okay, but what if you really want something and you have no idea who this auctioneer is? Maybe some auctioneers
right,
have different reputations than others. Say you're just coming in blind, you don't know who they are.
right.
What should you do?
What do you do?
Don't tell them anything.
Well, don't. I certainly wouldn't tell them how much you're willing to spend on
No.
on a piece of equipment, right? But you can
That's
go in.
true. You could tell them that you're interested and they don't
Yeah,
they might think, well, you know more than they do anyways. So they may not realize that they may think they can jack you around, but maybe they can't.
yeah, yeah. You got to be sensible. And then my battery is going. I have to move this for a second so I
Sure.
can charge. I hope that still works. Is that still good?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Um, oh, God,
Can you have the
phone
headphones
call.
plugged in and have it
Yeah, no,
charging at the same
no,
time?
yeah, yes, yeah. I have a stand.
This sounds good, actually, right here.
Oh, good, excellent. So I've had buyers come to me and talk to me and explain to me what they're looking for. And there are times where I can help them out by offering things like bid protection. And if I get a bid I'm happy with, I can protect my buyers. Whereas if the last thing an auction buyer wants to enter into is a bidding war, even though it's an auction sale. And sometimes we can arrange
And
what we
that's what
call bid protection.
an auctioneer loves, a bidding war.
Of course, of course. But a buyer, when you go in small increments, you get into a bidding war. All of a sudden, you're at 100 grand, and your maximum is 100 grand, and you're up to 100 grand, and now you're at 102.5. You're at 105. You're on 107.5, and all of a sudden you're way over. You're way over, and you're involved in this bidding war that gets you well beyond your comfort or your budget. There are times where we can work out a situation where we can prevent that from
But
happening.
why would an auctioneer want to do that?
Well, prevent is not the right word. What we can do is we can avoid. Hey, if you're willing to bid 100, your budget's 100. If you lose it for 150, you don't care. But if you lose it for 105, you go, God, I should have bid that. I shouldn't have gotten in that bidding war. So if I know a buyer is willing to pay 100 grand, and I'm happy with that 100 grand, and I know for sure I have $100,000 bid, I may say to that buyer, I'll tell you what I'm going to do for you. You open it at $100,000. I will protect you to 115 or 110. You won't get into a bidding war between 100 and 115,000.
How will you
And then if
protect them?
somebody, I will not accept a bid less than the increment that I promised I wouldn't take. So at 115,000, somebody says 102.5, I'm not going to accept it. I said the next bid's 115 grand. Take it or leave it. Now,
So
if
do
the
you
guy
think
bids
that's-
115,000,
That's not really fair to
Absolutely.
the other person.
sure it is. Sure it is. The guy stepped up and said, I'm willing to pay you 100 grand. Now, I don't always do it, but sometimes I do it. And sometimes it's very beneficial for the buyer because he knows he's got a budget. And like I said, if you were going to lose an item, you don't want to lose it for 1,000 or two. But if you lose it for 25 grand, all right, well, his budget was a lot larger than mine, and I walk away feeling okay. But if I walk away thinking, well, I really should have gone another grand or 2 grand or 3 grand, and I would have the machine, I try and help my buyers avoid that. So back to the point. The point you're asking is about, how do you talk to the auctioneer? You have to get to a level of comfort, and you can find out the reputation of the auction company by talking to other people that have attended them. You can call there's associations. You can call machinery dealers that like, and trust, and they can tell you who's a respectable auction company and who you will probably not get a good shake, a fair shake from.
What about people buying things before the sale? I know,
Yeah.
we know this
Yeah.
happens.
Yep.
Just explain that a little bit. I mean, obviously,
I can tell you my
if
attitude
a private person selling the machine gets a offer that's hard to refuse, and you feel like it's also your responsibility to help your client, how does this go down for the normal layperson who doesn't really know what happened?
Yeah. So I have always been against pre-selling something once it's been advertised. I've been against pre-selling something out of an auction sale.
Once it's advertised.
Once it's advertised, I really don't like doing that for a lot of reasons. I don't like breaking up a shop. I don't like having the facility having the reputation of, oh yeah, they're selling a lot of stuff out of here before the auction sale. I want to drive my buyers to the auction sale where they can bid on the equipment at a level playing field.
Okay.
So I really, really avoid that. And I tell my clients that I don't typically like that. Now, we're all in business, right? And if I figure something for $100,000 and I get a $200,000 offer, that's compelling.
Yeah.
And we have to do an analysis of, all right, so if we pre-sell this item and we can let people know that it's no longer in the sale, don't come, we can do that. Pulling things out of an auction sale they have effect and impact on other items in the sale too, because let's say you come to buy a Brown and Sharp, and while you're there, you see a bunch of tooling, you see a rotary table, you see a parts washer, you see a ladder, you see a bunch of other stuff that you cannot buy unless you're there. If that equipment isn't in the sale and you're not there, you're not bidding on that stuff. And even if you don't end up being the high bidder, you're still bidding on it. You're still bringing the prices up to a reasonable level. So I
Yeah,
like to
but
drive.
but there's a lot of times where they just protect it, where auctioneers sell it before the sale
That's
and then they
true. That's
protect it.
true. That's true. They'll pre-sell it and they'll put it in the auction sale, and they'll just put it in the sale, and they'll be the high bidder.
Yeah.
And and they'll sell it to the person that uh, they'll buy it back, and they
Sure.
doesn't nobody knows the difference, but it's not a good practice. And I'll tell
Okay.
you something else.
Yeah.
Whenever that has happened to me, and somebody has sold a piece of equipment before the sale, and I really am dead set against it, but it has happened to me. They sell it for $50,000 because they thought it was a great, great price. We have to top the $75,000 bid that we get at the auction sale to buy it back so that we can give it to the person that paid 50 grand for it before the sale. And it destroys the reputation because the buyer, hey, I bought it before the sale, and he tells people, and it's bad.
Oh, yeah.
It's very, very bad. You shouldn't do that.
Um,
So I like to have a level playing field where people feel comfortable that when they come to my auction sales, they know that they can buy what's in the auction sale. They can buy it.
how, maybe you can't, tell me this, but how can you tell um if you're at an auction and you see the price going up and you're not sure if somebody else is actually bidding or not? Are there telltale
Uh-huh.
signs you can see?
Depends on the auctioneer, and you do not want to get into you don't want to get into a match with the auctioneer. Honestly, and I've seen auctioneers. The auctioneer has to establish credibility with the buyers. Some are able to establish that credibility, and some are not, and some don't care. Some auctioneers just don't care. If you want to buy it, you buy it at the auction sale, and you pay what I'm asking for it.
Yeah.
That's more of a retail environment than what a real auction sale is. And I don't know how to comment on
No,
that.
no, I think you gave a pretty good answer. What about
Yeah,
when you're
you don't want
bidding
to alienate.
online?
Yeah.
Okay,
Uh-huh.
so now everything's online, really. I
Right.
mean, sometimes you have the webcast or whatever, but okay, so you're bidding online, like a sale like that just happened
Mm-hmm.
with Duffin,
Right.
and you can do these max bids like on Bid
Right.
Spotter.
Right.
Um, Now, what I've tried before is doing the max bid where you can kind of like make other people, maybe they'll keep trying, so like, for instance, if somebody needs reference, like the price you see is 2 grand, but yourself, you'd pay 10 grand for this machine. So you put in 8 grand, hoping that somebody else will just start bidding and it'll go, no, bid not accepted, you haven't bid enough, and maybe that person will get frustrated. Is that a good
All right. So,
strategy?
so online auction sales are a little bit different than your typical live auction sale. A typical live auction sale is really a linear sale where you are selling one lot at a time. And you can't really be selling simultaneously multiple lots
Yeah.
at a live auction. You can group them all together, but the way that the online software operates is that if there is a bid within the last minute or so on an item, it will extend the time for another predetermined period of time.
So how can you beat, how can you is there
Hang on,
a trick?
let me answer this for you so that I give you an overview of how the software works and what certain things do and other packages don't do.
Okay.
And then we can talk, and then I can answer your questions that I haven't answered. So that's one thing where you can actually bid on multiple items so you can put in your maximum bid. And the software will not allow the bid to be raised more than the underbid. So let's say you put in $100 bid on something, and the maximum bid that's not you is $5. It may bid for you 7.5. And if somebody else has bid $100, or let's say $50, you bid 100 and the other person's bid 50, it will automatically escalate the last bid to beat the underbidder's maximum bid, but it won't go beyond that.
Okay. Yeah.
And in a lot of packages, and that's good, because what happens is you can put in, and if you were watching the sale yesterday, you look at all of the items. Buyers go through the catalog and they sit there at their computer and they go through the photographs, and they put in their pre-bids and their maximum bids on hundreds of items simultaneously, and then they leave. And they either put in their maximum bids and they wait for the end of the auction and find out what they got, and or they watch the auction sale as it's going on, and if somebody beats their maximum bid, they can hop right back in. But it is a very, very efficient way of bidding, because you don't have to sit there and bid on every item you can spend your day doing something else too.
Well, but then you have to sit there and watch it in overtime, and
Yes, well, if you want the item, and everybody wants to buy it for their maximum bid, but that in overtime, buyers are going, oh, geez, this is the bidding war I was talking about before. Am I going to really lose that for $10? No, I'm going to bid another $10. I'm not going to lose that machine for $1,000. I'll bid another $1,000, and it keeps extending it. Listen, the auction sales and the software were designed for the benefit of the auctioneers and the sellers.
Yeah, social
Not necessarily
psychologists,
the
I'm
buyers.
sure.
Yeah.
Economic, behavioral.
It was designed
economics.
to make our lives easier. We have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize the selling prices for our clients.
Sure.
And that's the way it's designed. We are the house. So to answer your other question, what do you do if you're a buyer and you think something funny is going on? I don't really think there's a lot you can do other than doing your inspection so you know the condition and the quality of the piece of equipment, and establishing what your absolute maximum amount you're willing to spend. And then I think you kind of have to say, if I get it in that number,
make your budget.
I'm happy. Make your budget, stick to your budget. Now, if you got a bunch of things that you're looking at, and you figured them for $100 a piece, and you've bought a bunch of them for 50, you're doing well. Now you can take some of that additional money that you didn't spend, and you can increase your prices on some of the other items that you may have to bid a little bit more on, and you look at the total amount that you spend rather than the individual pricing. Now, if you're a dealer and you have different partners on different items that you're bidding on, that makes it a little bit more complicated. But if you're an end user, or if you're a dealer and you're not partnering the purchase of pieces of equipment, you can easily do that. And
what
it works.
about so like, I think often you see, for instance, in this auction yesterday, I actually paid quite a bit of attention. There was 2 Okumas, pretty much the same, 11 and 12 manufactured. Now, one of the things that auctioneers do is they want something to sort of set the benchmark for the other one. So if you were going to strategize, like how you would, do you want to go after the first one or the second one, or have you analyzed this before? Like
all the time.
how you deal
all
with
the
that?
Time. all the
You're
time.
You're like every morning, every night.
Yeah, every day. Yeah, every lot. Hope this was ordered properly. I hope my setup guys did a good job, But the strategy behind the sequencing of your lots is really based on how do I provide myself flexibility and how do I get the most amount of money out of it. And if you have 2 identical machines and one is a little newer than the other, I'll ask you this question, Noah. Would you sell the better one first, or would you sell the better one second?
Let me think for a second. I think you would sell the better one first
That's the right answer.
because theoretically you could get more money for that just based on that. Then again, and then you have fear of missing out on the second one. So even if it's not quite as good, you have fear of missing out because you didn't get the first one.
Your answer is correct.
Also,
and everything you said
it
is
sets
correct.
a bar.
It sets the bar. It sets the bar because everybody wants the good one. Everybody wants the best one. So you've set the bar at a higher price. And you've established that it's a high price. And then you sell the second one and people didn't get the first one. So now they have to get the second one. And they saw the first one go for a lot of money. So, and sometimes the second one brings more.
That's what I'm thinking, because
yeah.
people go, oh, well, this is my last chance.
Yeah. So when I have two machines, I debate whether or not, if it's a live auction sale, to offer them with buyer's choice and privilege, which means the highest bidder may take either or both, and or I offer it with buyer's choice without privilege.
That makes it even much more complicated.
Right. So I think it's much easier to do that in a live auction sale than in an online auction sale, because a live auction sale, I can verbally express the rules of the offering of those lots. And I can say to my buyers, this is what we're doing. Do you understand? And a lot of times somebody will say, no, please explain it to me. And I can explain it until they understand it. And then I can offer it. When we're selling it in an online auction sale, it becomes a little bit more difficult to offer it with buyer's choice and privilege, because some of the auction packages and softwares don't permit that. So you kind of just have to put them in order and let them go the way they go, and just hope that you ordered them correctly. And I always put the best first.
You always put the best first.
I always put the best first. Yep.
And I guess probably what you'd advise somebody then is to just have your budget and have your limit.
Yeah.
Go for your limit on each one and be disciplined, more or less.
Yeah. And you can predetermine your comfort level with the auction company and the people you're dealing with by talking with them. And you can have a conversation with the auction company and the people that are running the auction sale without tipping your hand. I mean, you can talk to them and say, how does your auction work? If I want to put in a proxy, how does that work? If I want to bid online, how does that? And you can talk to them. And you can say, if I want you to put certain lots together for me, would you be willing to do that? And they'll give you an answer. And just listen, Noah, you talk to a lot of people and you develop a rapport with people. And I think that I know for a fact that I enjoy developing a rapport with my buyers.
Yeah.
And I think any auctioneer that's any good does also welcome that opportunity to develop a rapport with their buyers. So I think that buyers should not look at an auctioneer or an auction sale event as being, don't be nervous. Don't be intimidated by it. It can be intimidating. It can be very intimidating. You don't want to make a mistake in an auction sale. But I think the more comfort you have, the less likely you will make a mistake.
Is the auction business now, we're going to go back to the auctioneer. I'm sure you got to go soon, but is the auction business for auctioneers, is it a better business now than it was back in the day? Is it easier to make a good buck?
There's a lot of people in the auction business. So the number of auction sales are divvied up between many more auctioneers than we used to. I mean, we used to run, oh my God, we used to run Detroit. We used to run 95% of the auction sales in Detroit, for example, or Ohio, or Michigan, Illinois. We were not only national, we were international, and there were only a handful of international or national competitors. So we divvied up.
This was when you were with your father still?
Norman Levy, Norman Levy Associates, yeah. Yeah. But there are more auction sales because the auction sale is a more mature process. It's better understood by a lot more people. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of auction sales, and I think that the fact that there are a lot more auctioneers because they perceived an opportunity here. Um, yeah, I mean, there's certainly more competition.
I mean, in our impression, you know, because we're observing things, and sometimes people ask us if we want to, you know, work with them or consult them. It seems like people have to be very aggressive. Auctioneers have to be very aggressive if they want to get a sale, and they don't necessarily make the best choice. They have to just like push it as hard as they can. Do you think that it's harder now for auctioneers to get a good deal because they're pushing so hard against each other?
Yeah. So you're bringing up a huge topic, which I'm happy to talk about. There's three different financial structures for an auction sale. There's fee work, which is a commissionable event, which means the auctioneer earns a percentage of what the assets sell for. There's an outright purchase where the auctioneer buys the equipment or the assets from the owner or the seller. And there's a hybrid, which is called a guaranteed scenario, where the auction company guarantees a net minimum return to the seller. And it can become very, very competitive on that front. The outright purchase is the offer you get on an outright purchase is the maximum you're going to get. You're not going to share in any overage. So like yesterday, we were 150% over our low end estimation. That was a really, really good day. We ran that sale on a fee, and our seller was the beneficiary of the overage. If my client had sold me the assets, or in the case of Charlie Harvin, I would have made 100% of everything over I paid for that deal. On a guarantee, there's a revenue share on an overage. It's a little bit better than the outright purchase for the seller because while there is an insurance policy in place that protects the downside, you're also doing a revenue share on the upside. So there is still an opportunity to share in the overage. On a fee, it's probably the most risky sales financial structure, but it's also the one that you make the most amount of money as a seller. And if you select properly your auction company and you work with the auction company to understand how they came up with the values and what they're going to do as far as marketing, site preparation, and how they're going to conduct the auction sale, I would say that 90% of the time, you as the seller will end up with more money in your pocket than if you sell the assets to the auction company.
Right.
Now, it depends on your tolerance for risk and your need for capital. And auction companies do benefit from people who have an immediate need for cash
Right.
and who are risk adverse. There's a lot of business out there, and auction companies. Listen, we're the house. We know what the marketplace is like. We know, but yeah, it became very competitive. It did, but again, I go back to product knowledge. If you know what you're selling, if you know the assets that you're selling, you have the ability to market the assets and present the assets and know what you're doing. It's like going to a brain surgeon. You want to go to somebody who really knows what they're doing. Otherwise, you're taking
Yeah.
a lot of risk. Yeah, but you
Just
can do that.
yeah. Well, just a couple more questions.
Uh-huh.
What is something that you learned last week about anything,
What did I learn last week? That's a good question.
or
I
yesterday?
learned here, I can't, maybe it wasn't last week, but what I've learned recently is that there are some really, really good people out there. And this pandemic has been very, very, very difficult for the world. And if you're not well grounded and you can't have a good vision and see an end to this thing, it's very easy for us to lose our way. And I think that we as a society need to really come together as opposed to being so polarized. I think the polarization that has occurred has been so detrimental to our mental health, our physical health. I think that if we can all get rid of that polarization and begin to work together.
Everything would be so easy if everybody just agreed with me because I know what's up.
Well,
I'm joking.
maybe.
I'm
No,
joking.
yeah, but I'm really distressed to see how people have become so angry and so polarized. And it's not about working together. It's about me winning at your expense rather than working together to come to a common good. And I really, I don't think I'm wrong, but I really hope that it ends soon and people begin to realize.
Was there something specific that made you learn this recently?
No, I'm just watching. I'm watching society. I'm watching how things are unfolding and unraveling. This has been a really, really hard time for a lot of people who have lost significant. I mean, we've lost family members, we've lost businesses, and it's all coming back now, but we're not out of it yet.
Has it been a good time for auctioneers?
So, yeah, I think the value of equipment certainly has not diminished. I think that the expense of transportation and the time it takes to get stuff out of facilities is now taking a little bit longer. But I think because of the supply chain issues, I don't see a degradation in the recoverable values of a lot of equipment because you just can't get equipment right now.
Is it good is it good when people are having boom times or when people are having tough times for the auctioneers?
Yeah. So when times are good, it's much more fun and we make more money because we have more buyers, prices are stronger, it's easier to sell stuff, and people are happier. When times are bad, we get very busy, the prices head downward because you have fewer buyers and more equipment for sale. It's a law of supply and demand. And people are a little more grumpy when times are not as good. So we like to see times good. We like to see healthy times and happy people.
Sure.
And things change hands more often when times are good because you may have a company selling stuff so that they can buy new equipment. As opposed to selling stuff to raise money to pay their employees. Yes. So we really like to see good times.
Yeah. Do you see good times for auctions in the near future?
I do. I think when we see more equipment coming on them, I think we'll see more equipment coming on the marketplace as supply chain becomes less restricted and people are trying to buy equipment. When they get new equipment, they'll be able to sell more stuff. And I do think that it will remain steady and strong.
Because I think right now it's so hard. It's so hard to find new equipment.
Yeah.
So it's got to be great for auctions.
Yeah, I think it's strong right now. If anybody wants to sell anything, I'll tell you, now's what we've seen recently. Now's a very good time to be selling. And I'm not just trying to plug the auction process right now, but it is true. It is true. And I think there's a window of opportunity right now.
What's one of your favorite sounds?
Sold sounds. I love music.
Yeah.
I love music. I love laughter. Have you ever listened to a child laugh? You're going to soon.
I know.
Yeah.
How long does it take before they start laughing? Like almost immediately?
Yeah. 4 months, 5 months. But when a child laughs, it absolutely brings laughter and a smile to your face that is incredible. And you'll laugh. Just Google child laughing or video child laughing. Go on TikTok and look for a laughing child. It will crack you up and it will make you feel good.
Man, you're hip. I'm impressed. You do TikTok? God, I've gone on TikTok once in my life. God.
Very addicting. It's very addicting.
Well, this has been fantastic. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people of the world?
I wish you all well. I hope you can find peace. I hope you can find comfort. And I really appreciate your desire to talk to me and listen to me. And you've always been very, very thoughtful, and you have good questions and you have good insight. You have a big heart. And
Oh,
I
thank you.
appreciate the opportunity to
I think
talk
this is
with
going to be a
you.
double episode. This is it's too much good stuff. Won't be able to edit it down, and I don't have any interview for the following week prepared. So
Oh, there you go. That's
comes
the
in
real
handy.
reason.
That's the real reason you asked me at the last second. No, just kidding.
No,
Well,
no, but it's been good, and thank you for the opportunity to talk
well,
with you.
fantastic, and we need to do business together sometime. If you have any needs for expertise on dirty oily screw machines,
I call
or sexy CNCs,
you know who I call.
All right, well, take it easy.
Yeah, you guys are, and I'll give you a plug. You guys are wonderful to work with. I have worked with you in the past, and you guys you're knowledgeable, you're ethical, you're thoughtful. Your word is very, very, very good. So I give you that plug too, because it's the truth.
There's nobody sorry, other auctioneers. There's many wonderful people out there, but I mean, we have the most fun working with you. And
thank you. You better stop, because other auction companies work with you too, and I don't want you to.
Well, I'm not saying that things have always gone right with you, but
oh, really? When have they not?
I remember I wasn't even in the business, but I remember going to see some auction, I think in the 90s, and you guys just lost your head. Just got slaughtered.
Oh, we had a bad sale?
Yeah. With
That's possible.
With Graff-Pinkert. They lost
really?
like $100,000 or something.
It's possible. Not every auction, you don't make money on every single auction sale,
It's what you tell everyone. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. No, it's possible. I don't know the deal.
Those you don't remember. You only remember the good ones.
Oh, no. I've had some sales.
What's the worst sale? What's the worst sale you ever had? We're in bonus time now. What's the worst sale?
There was a stamping plant we bought for way, way too much money, and we lost in the millions. It was not a good sale, and we just overvalued it, and the marketplace was coming down.
Your company lost millions?
$1 million. Yeah, we lost $1 million, over $1 million on a deal. Fortunately, we had a lot of deals going on at the time, so it was absorbable. But you never, ever, ever want to do that. I had a deal. We bought a deal. There were Tornos Becklers, very, very, very specialized Tornos Becklers, and it turned out that there were only like 6 of those machines ever made, and there was no market for them.
Are those the SAS 32s or something? Or
no, I don't think they were SAS 32s, but I don't remember them. I blocked that out of it was a long time ago, but we got clobbered on that deal too. But for the most part, if you have enough deals going on, you can recover, and you have to look at it kind of like a portfolio. of investments.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
because you're going to make money on some, you might lose a little bit on some, but you make money on more. And, hopefully at the end of the year, you've made more money than you lost. But I don't like losing money. And when I'm working with my partners, I feel a responsibility to advise and protect my partners so that they're not involved in as many auction transactions as we are. So they don't have the opportunity to make up the different, to make up their losses on another deal. So I think that it's very, very important that
Yeah.
the auction companies don't abuse their
You
dealer partners.
you must get some people pissed off at you if they're just paying you a fee and then they lose a bunch of money.
Yeah, we don't like that to happen. We don't like that to happen. And we advise our clients too. We think that you're good. We think that you made a good deal. We think that you overpaid. We think this isn't going to work. And I'm very honest with, not very honest. I am honest with people about my perceptions of the transaction. So, and I've seen enough to have a reasonably decent opinion. So anyway.
So. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Talk to you soon.
Hey, Noah. Be well. Thank you very much, and we'll talk.
We'll talk.
Be well.
I'll send you a message next week. I need a good photograph.
I don't know if I can get you one of those.
something contextual.
You want a bikini?
A bikini in front of a truck.
There you go. All right.
Sure, you can.
All right, we'll
figure
something out. Yeah.
All right, man. Bye.
All right. Call me later.
All right.
Bye, Noah.